When I'm asked what the most common roadblock is on our path from insomnia to sleeping well, the most common answer I give is the idea that your case is unique. I'm excited because in today's episode, I have some new evidence that you can use to leave this idea and find peaceful sleep for the rest of your life. Let's jump in. Welcome back to this episode of Insomnia Insight. I hope you will find a ton of value here. And yes, we're going to talk about the idea that your case is unique and special. In fact, one of the most common things I'm quoted for that people reminding me of having said is you're unique. Your insomnia is not. Or I usually say you're unique and special, but your insomnia is not. And in this episode, we're going to see why the idea that we have a very unique and special case can stand in our way of sleeping well and how to meet this scenario. Now, firstly, I want to say that I hear this in very often in many shapes or forms, the idea that my insomnia is unique. And the first thing I wanted to share here is why this can become a real roadblock on our way to peaceful sleep. It becomes an issue if we think that our insomnia is unique and special, and it therefore requires some special intervention to get resolved. If you think my case is really unique, that will lead us to search all over the internet for someone who has exactly the same case as us, somebody who has experienced the exact same thing, somebody who's found the particular magic solution to our very special and unique case. You can see this leads to a lot of researching, monitoring, searching, experimenting, trying. In other words, it leads to a lot of effort, a lot of attempts to achieve sleep. And what we know about sleep is that it is an effortless process, right? So this is why the idea that my insomnia is unique can be a really significant roadblock. Now, with that said, let's take a look at what this class is going to be, how this class is going to be structured. So we're going to talk about number one, we're going to talk about the first piece of evidence that can really change your idea that your insomnia is unique. And secondly, we're going to look at the second piece of evidence, which I called the duality. The first one I called the thought. And then thirdly, we're going to look at the scenario where you actually don't find any convincing evidence, that you remain thinking that your insomnia is unique, and how to meet that situation. Now, before we jump in, I want to just clarify one thing. The details, the specific details of anyone's sleep struggle, of course, are unique. I often get asked hey, Daniel, do you have a success story with anyone who struggled with insomnia for 14 years, who took trazodone for the first 2 years, who was an athlete, and who also liked going to the opera, or something I'm just making something up. But my point is, if you ask me a question like that, of course I'm going to be no, I can't come up with somebody who's had exactly day by day the precise same experience as you. But that's not what matters. Our life story is always going to be a little bit different here and there. The details are always going to be different. But when it comes to insomnia, we can learn that the principles, the main, way of thinking, the way of behaving, the thought patterns, the emotions, that lead us to struggle with sleep are the same, right? We can see that. So again, when I say that you're unique and special, but your insomnia is not, I don't mean that, there's another person on earth who has had exactly the same day-by-day experiences you have, but in principle, they had the exact same, they've had principally the same experience, right? That's what I refer to. Now, with that said, let's see how we can meet the idea that I have a very unique and special case. And I call this the first evidence that isn't true, the thought. And here's the thing. I've had the opportunity to talk with hundreds of people, face-to-face or over Zoom, and thousands of people if you include text-based coaching, answering comments, and things of that nature. And I have yet to find one person who said, Daniel, I think I have an ordinary case. I think I'm pretty typical. I think everything is pretty standard with me. I've never heard that from anyone. But I've heard the idea ranging from like, I'm completely and utterly convinced that I'm the worst case of insomnia ever in the world, to like, I think my case is kind of strange. It's a little bit strange, right? There's a spectrum there, but everyone who I interacted with has fallen onto that spectrum. In other words, everyone I've ever interacted with, to some degree, has thought that their case was unique. And if if you get a chance to meet like 100 people who at one point struggled with insomnia, and you ask them like, did you at any point think that your case was like really unique? I bet you that like 100 arms will go up in there. Like people will be like, yeah, I thought that, or like, yeah, I definitely thought, like 100% thought. Everybody had that thought at some point. So again, everyone, whoever, okay, there's a typo here, and of course we have to fix the typo. Everyone who ever struggled with insomnia at some point thought their case was unique. So in other words, having the thought that our case is unique is actually all but mandatory. It's ordinary. It's very, very typical to have the thought that our insomnia is unique. In other words, thinking my case is unique is proof that it isn't. Right? So this is like, I think this is really something to ponder, like, because it's really so paradoxical in a way, but having the thought that our insomnia is unique is actually evidence and proof that it isn't, because that is an ordinary, typical, and standard thought. In other words, if you have thought my case is unique, you have proof right there that it isn't. You have proof right there that you have the same thought process, the same thinking, the same struggle as everyone else who struggled with insomnia. That was the first one, the thought. Now let's go to number 2, the second piece of evidence, which I call the duality. And this is new. I've never actually talked about this before. Very, very quick backstory. The other week, like last week, I was a guest with Insomnia 2 Peace, or John. And I thought we were going to talk about the topic of like uniqueness. So I prepared some pointers. I'm like, oh, this is really nice. Then we actually talked about something different. We talked about like the idea that our insomnia is caused by some like physiological reason, some biological thing or some illness. But I thought that the points I made were so nice, so I was excited to share them with you. But anyway, this part is unique. I was about to use the word unique, but this is something I've never talked about before. So I'm excited to share this with you. And this is the second evidence. And the thing here is also something I've observed a lot over the years, and it is that the opposite of what you think makes your insomnia unique is used as evidence by somebody else that their insomnia is unique. Let me just read this, what I wrote, for more clarity. The opposite of what you think made your case unique is also thought to mean that another person has, unique case. Now, if this is still kind of like fuzzy to you, like you're like, what did you say there? It's going to be very clear now, because we're going to go over 3 examples. I've heard this one many times. I'm not even touched by medications. Medications have never done anything for me. That must mean my case is unique. I heard that many times. And I've also heard, I can only sleep if I take medications. If I don't take sleep medications, I do not sleep. That must mean my case is unique. In other words, 2 completely opposite experiences are both used as evidence that somebody's insomnia is unique and special. Let's keep going. There's 2 more I want to share with you. This is another common one. I sleep 0 hours. Like I have absolutely 0 sleep. My case must be unique. Very common. But equally common is this one. I actually sleep a quote unquote normal amount. I sleep 7 to 8 hours every night. But I'm still struggling with like, my life hasn't changed. I'm still consumed by worrying about sleep. My case must be unique. You see, completely different experiences, but both used as evidence of having unique insomnia, of having a unique experience. And finally, this one, I feel completely drained and exhausted, like so utterly tired that I can't do anything if I don't get enough sleep. My insomnia must be unique. And this one is also very common. I sleep nothing, but I feel wired and energized the next day. My insomnia must be unique. Again, you see completely different experiences, both used as evidence that, you know, somebody has a unique case of insomnia. And I think why I thought this could be so eye-opening is, like, you know, the thought that you probably already have, which is that you're realizing that somebody else can have the exact opposite experience as you, and they think that their insomnia is unique because of that, right? And that can really lead you to see that we can think of almost anything, almost any experience we have can lead us to think of this. I have this experience, that must mean my case is unique. But in reality, there are no unique experiences. Like if you whatever you've experienced, if you ask a bunch of people, like in our community, like, did you have this? You'll be like, several people will be like, yeah, I had exactly that experience, right? So there are no unique experiences. We can just happen to think of them as unique, right? And thinking of them as unique is normal and typical. And I thought this was another kind of like eye-opening piece of evidence that there is nothing unique about our insomnia experience, right? We are very special and unique people, but insomnia is nothing special, unique. Nothing is special and unique about it. Now, if you've heard this and you're going like, okay, I get what you're saying, but for whatever reason, I think my case is special and unique, you know? Just another kind of duality thing came to me that I wanted, I just like spontaneously want to include here, which is the one person says, I have so many health issues. I have suffered from this, and that. That must make my case unique. And another person goes like, I have zero health issues. My health is in perfect condition. That must mean my case is unique, right? Just another one that just came to mind. There are many of these. But anyway, if you come to the conclusion that you're like, I think my case is special after all, I think I do have a unique case, and guess what? Paradoxically, that doesn't need to stand in your way, right? And now you're like, and if you're thinking like, how can you say that when you just said that one of the most common roadblocks is thinking of your insomnia is unique? I'll get to that in a second, but firstly, hearing what I just said, it can come across as like really important to convince yourself that your case is not unique and special, which is never helpful. Like whenever we try to convince ourselves of something we don't really believe in, it's sort of like trying to convince a friend that has a different political opinion of ours that our opinion is correct. It's just going to lead to struggle. It's just going to lead to them thinking even more that they're correct and like fighting with you and arguing with you, right? Same thing plays out internally. Like if part of our brain thinks we have a unique and special case, then we don't want to try to forcefully convince it otherwise. That is not going to be helpful. We just want to kind of let that thought be, and very often it kind of just resolves with time. It just changes with time, without effort, but just thanks to kind of education and us taking this inner journey. But like to answer the question of like, how can I say that it's totally fine to have the idea that we're unique? It's not like required or necessary to change that idea for us to leave the struggle. Well, it is because of what I said initially, which is that thinking my case is unique is a common roadblock when it leads us to think, oh, I have to find the special cure. I have to do this. I have to try even harder, right? It's not just having that thought, but it's like where it leads that is tricky. But we can have the same idea, like my case is unique, and then be like, and it's, you know, that's all it is. It's unique, and I'm kind of like not sleeping the way I would like to, but there's like, I don't have to do anything about it. I can accept things the way they are. I don't need to struggle. I don't need to search. I've already done that. That hasn't led me anywhere. I can let things be the way they are. And guess what? We can still think I have a unique and special case. And when we're not trying to like remedy that, change that, intervene, like monitors, research, Google, etc., peaceful sleep will come our way. Because remember, peaceful sleep and peace of mind, they have no requirements, right? When we're not trying to intervene or change things or manipulate things, peace of mind and peaceful sleep come our way. Hope this made a lot of sense to you. As always, let me know what you thought in the comment section, and I look forward to having you here real soon. Bye for now. Hi, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I hope that you found a ton of value in the video that you just saw. Now, if somebody would ask me, hey, Daniel, what do you think would really help somebody who has tuned in to a lot of the videos, who understands a lot, but who's just not seeing things change for them? I would say contextualization, discourse, to talk to somebody who understands what you've been going through, that you can ask questions to, get a reply, ask a follow-up question, get another reply, etc. That conversation so often starts to clarify things and really kickstarts your journey towards peaceful sleep. And one way you can have such a conversation is by booking a call with one of our coaches. In fact, you can head over to our website, thesleepcoachschool.com, and you can see which coaches offer calls and check out their individual success story to see if their story relates with you, and you find that connection that leads you to see that this is a person that I could work with. This is a person I would talk to. And then you can book a call, and that could be what really kickstarts your journey to where you want to be.